My family shut me out for 3 years. On Christmas, I was told to leave. Then I found the letter they hid, and legally took everything. My name is Eli, and I am 33 years old. Christmas used to be my favorite time of year. Lights on the porch, cinnamon in the air, and for a few hours, the world seemed kinder. Or it used to. Things began to alter in my family approximately 3 years ago, but it wasn't until last Christmas that the dam broke. And, indeed, it broke directly over my head. I pulled into the driveway shortly before 6, worried, but hopeful. I had a wrapped bottle of wine under one arm, something nice, aged, and not from the grocery store, as well as a batch of handmade cookies made after staying up until 2 a.m. baking. I even donned the red sweater my mother used to adore, which she felt made me look like someone who would host a Hallmark special. It was intended to be a kind gesture, possibly a peace offering. I hadn't been around much in the last few years, not after Mom's death, and to be honest, things with the family had become tense. Samantha, my sister, chastised me for not visiting often enough. My Aunt Brenda always had a bone to pick with me, usually about how I believed I was superior to the rest of us after moving out of town for work. But I assumed Christmas was Christmas. We can all put our egos aside for one night, right? Apparently not. I rang the doorbell. Through the frosted glass, I noticed movement, shadows, and laughter. Someone glanced through the blinds and hastily closed them again. 1 second later, the door flung open. Aunt Brenda stood there, in all her passive-aggressive grandeur, sparkling reindeer sweater, wine glass in hand, and that unmistakable expression of disdain saved only for me. "Oh," she responded plainly, without attempting to conceal her irritation. "You actually showed up." I offered her a courteous grin. "Merry Christmas, Aunt D." She looked over her shoulder, then back at me with a sigh, as if I had soiled her beautiful carpet. "We don't want you here. Go ruin someone else's holiday." Her voice was low and piercing, like a whisper that might pierce through bone. I blinked. "What?" She leaned in closer, her expression remained unchanged. "This is a family gathering. You made it pretty clear the last few years that you're not part of this family anymore." I attempted to see past her into the living room. There they were, my relatives, uncles, and even my father. They were all seated around the large table, golden and warm beneath the chandelier. Samantha was putting gravy over her plate, laughing at something Uncle Mike had said. Dad carved the bird as if nothing was amiss. Nobody had looked up. Nobody has come to greet me. Everyone knew I was out here. I'm not sure how long I stood there, stunned. I opened my mouth to speak, but all that came out was a quick gasp. "I see," I eventually answered with sincerity. "I witnessed everything." I turned and proceeded down the steps without looking back. My cookies slipped somewhat in the tray, but I kept them steady. I did not flee or slam the gate. Instead, I walked back to my car as the snow began to fall in large, wet flakes. The kind that melted instantly but maintained a quiet calm as if the entire planet was holding its breath. I sat in the car for a little moment, grasping the steering wheel. It wasn't wrath or despair, just a hollow feeling in my chest. I drove for 2 hours. I had prepared what I would say to Dad. I also delivered a present for Melanie's newborn, despite the fact that she never responded to my message of congratulations. It would have been easy to cry. It's easier still to anger. But I did not do either. I simply whispered, "Got it," and started the engine. I had only driven 5 minutes when my phone began to buzz. First one call, then another. I ignored them and let them go to voicemail. I didn't want to hear it. No justification, no lie, could erase Brenda's expression when she stated what she did. None of it would erase the vision of my entire family huddled in the warm glow, like if I never existed. Then came the 10th call. "Dad." I eventually responded, if only out of morbid curiosity. "Eli," he said in a weak voice. There was noise in the background, including slamming doors and shouted shouting. "Yeah," I said gently. "Where are you?" "On my way home." "What?" He didn't respond immediately away. Samantha could be heard in the background saying something I couldn't understand, then whispered, "He's not picking up, Dad. Just let it go." But Dad wouldn't let it go. "Turn around, please, something's happened." "Something's happened," I said softly. "What exactly? Did the turkey dry out?" He disregarded the jab. "Eli, just come back, please, you need to come back." I nearly laughed. "You need me to come back now?" After your sister told me to ruin someone else's holiday? Dad breathed deeply, as if he were wrestling with himself. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know she said that. I didn't even know you were at the door until 10 minutes ago. There was a thud, as if he were moving quickly, possibly grabbing a coat. I heard wind and then footsteps. Where are you now? He inquired. About 10 minutes away. Why? I'm coming to get you, he said. Just stay where you are. Please, Eli. Don't hang up. I did not respond right away. Then I noticed headlights behind me in the rearview mirror. Someone had driven out of the driveway in a rush. That's when I discovered my father had departed. He had physically left the house. On Christmas night. I had never seen him do it. He was the one who cut the turkey, passed the rolls and said the toasts. The focus of the entire thing. Eli. He murmured again, breathless. Wait for me. And with that, the hollow in my breast began to twist. Not into hope, but into something else. Because I got a sudden feeling that whatever happened next would not be calm or easy. And what he was about to tell me would change everything. I parked into a gas station parking lot about a mile down the road. The room was mostly black, but for the flickering buzz of one overhead light and the flashing red digits of a lottery sign that hadn't been updated since Halloween. I parked on the edge, next to an old dumpster, and cut the engine. Snow was settling on the windshield, leaving tiny traces like frostbite lace. I did not turn on the heat. A minute later, a car veered into my father's silver Subaru. It squealed slightly when it drew to a halt alongside me. The door swung open, revealing him with a barely zipped jacket, one glove on and the other gripped in his fist. He said nothing at first, but stood outside my car, his chest heaving. His face was flushed from the cold, or possibly something else. He appeared older and smaller under the parking lot lights. I broke my window. You okay? He nodded and motioned excitedly. Get out, please. I need to talk to you, not through glass. I hesitated, but eventually stepped out. The wind was a bit strong, snow stuck in my hair and melted on my neck. He looked at me as if he had not seen me in years. Perhaps he hadn't. She told you we didn't want you there? He said, his voice tight and controlled, as if each syllable was keeping back a tsunami. She said to go ruin someone else's holiday. I told her. He flinched just slightly. That wasn't us. That wasn't me. I didn't even know you were at the door. I was carving the stupid turkey when Samantha leaned over and whispered, Don't worry. Aunt Brenda handled Eli. I didn't understand what she meant until it clicked. Until I saw the empty seat at the end of the table. I crossed my arms. Handled, huh? He appeared unwell. Eli, you have to understand. Ever since your mom passed, Brenda's wormed her way into everything. Holidays, decisions. She's got this twisted idea that Samantha's the golden child and you. The embarrassment. I finished for him. Dad did not argue, which was nearly worse. I should have stopped it years ago, he said. After your mom died, I let people fill the silence. Brenda filled it the loudest. I could see it in his face. Remorse and regret. But it didn't erase the years I'd spent alone on Christmas mornings, the birthdays they'd forgotten, or the family group chats I'd been silently excluded from. Why now? I asked. Why chase after me this time? He gulped heavily. Because it's gone too far. And because... He stopped and wondered. Because I found something in the kitchen drawer tonight. After you left. He reached into his coat pocket and carefully took out a folded piece of paper, as if it were sacred. I took it with numb fingers. This was a letter. From my mother. To my son, Eli. I blinked, my eyes hurting. She wrote it before she died, Dad explained solemnly. She left it for you. But Samantha and Brenda. His jaw stiffened. They must have hidden it. I had no idea until tonight. I was looking for matches to light the extra candles, and there it was. I opened it with nervous hands. I won't copy it word for word since it feels too personal, but in short, it was just what I needed to hear. She said she was proud of me. She was aware of how others, particularly Brenda, handled me. That I should not allow them to make me feel small. Her last Christmas desire was for Dad and me to remain close, that I was not the disappointment they portrayed me to be. I'm not sure how long I stood there, staring at the ink. My father's words pierced through the silence. She didn't want this family to become what it has. I didn't protect you from it. But I can now. Something in me changed gradually and painfully, like a knot that had been knotted for years suddenly unwinding. "She left this for me," I mumbled. "And they buried it." He nodded. "Brenda knew what it would do. That's why she kept it from you." I clenched the paper with my fist. "And Samantha?" He paused. She let it happen. She's been listening to Brenda for too long." Of course she did. The bias was never disguised. Samantha has never done anything wrong since we were kids. And I was the one who squandered potential by choosing art school over law, who didn't rush into marriage, and who relocated out of state. It always perplexed me how a family that preached love could become so chilly when you didn't fit the picture frame. My jaw constricted. "I need to know the truth. All of it." My father hesitated, then nodded once. "Then come back. Just for a moment. Not to celebrate. To confront." I stared at him. "You're asking me to walk back into that house?" "I'm asking you to let them see what they tried to erase." I did not respond right away. But I began heading back to the car, toward the house that had tried so hard to forget me, and in my pocket, I held the one thing they couldn't take. Mom's words. Her truth. 10 minutes later, we pulled back into the driveway. Lights twinkled in the shrubs, and the warmth of the house shone through the windows like a stage set awaiting its concluding act. But this time, I wasn't standing at the entrance waiting to be accepted. This time, I was lowering the curtain. What occurred when I walked through that door? They stopped laughing. The front door creaked open before I could reach it. My father must have contacted someone, since Aunt Brenda was already standing in the hallway, lips pursed and arms folded, like if I had arrived unannounced to a funeral. "Well," she continued, "look who's back." I stepped by her without speaking. The smell of honeyed ham and baked yams lingered in the air, blending with the low buzz of uneasy quiet. As I stepped into the dining room, every eye turned to me. Samantha's hand froze in mid-bite. Uncle Mike stopped drinking his wine. Even the dog stopped chewing the scraps it had grabbed from under the table. Nobody said anything. The room held its breath. I stared around the table, allowing the stillness to linger and soak up their thoughts. I then held up the letter. "This," I continued slowly, "was buried in a drawer, hidden." Brenda shuffled in the hallway, her fingers gripping the stem of her wine glass. "That's private. You had no right." "No," I replied sharply. "You had no right. She wrote this to my son, not to you, not to Samantha, to me, and you kept it from me." Samantha stood up, partly indignant and half uncomfortable. "Eli, you don't even know the full story. That letter, Mom was sick when she wrote it. She wasn't thinking straight." I turned to face her completely. She was thinking clearly enough to say I was being left out, that you were allowing Brenda to treat me as if I were a mistake, and that Dad and you needed to step up. Her gaze flew to Dad, who stood calmly beside the doorway. When she realized he wasn't going to save her, her voice lifted slightly. "You left. You moved away and ghosted us." "I didn't ghost you," I responded quietly and firmly. "You shut the door. I came to Mom's bedside and was told not to stress her out. I messaged you on her birthday. I called you when Dad had that fall. Every time it was a brick wall. And when I did show up, you made me feel like I didn't belong." "Because you never stayed," Samantha said, her tone tinged with old hatred. "You always ran off to your little artsy city life and left the rest of us here to deal with everything." I chuckled out of amazement rather than humor. "You mean you and Brenda? You two practically pushed me out. Every time I tried to reconnect, it was like showing up to a party no one wanted me at." Aunt Brenda spoke again as she stepped completely into the room, her eyes cold and narrowed. "Maybe that's because every time you come back you bring drama. We've done just fine without you." "Right," I replied with a shrug. "Which is exactly why you made sure this letter never reached me. Because deep down, you knew the truth. You knew she didn't agree with how you've been running this family. She saw you for what you are." Brenda clenched her jaw. "That letter doesn't change reality. We had to keep things together after your mother passed. We needed an order." "You mean control," Dad remarked quietly, his first words since we arrived. Brenda stared at him, astonished. "Excuse me?" Dad stepped forwards, his voice firm. "You took control, Brenda. I let you know that's on me, but hiding that letter, that's on you." The table was completely silent now. My cousins looked around uneasily and shifted in their seats. The infant in the bassinet let out a quiet coo, the only harmless sound in the entire home. Samantha sat back down slowly, like if her legs had failed. "So what do you want, Eli? You came back just to make a scene?" I tilted my head. I came back because my dad deserved to hear what his wife wanted, and because I deserved to hear what my mother said to me before she died. I took a step toward the table and carefully placed the letter in the center, near to the cranberry sauce that no one had touched. "And now I want the truth out there. I want you all to sit with the fact that you tried to erase me from my own family story. And I want you, Samantha, to look me in the eye and admit that you let it happen." Samantha did not look up. Her mouth moved as if she had something to say, but nothing came out. I turned to leave. I was not here to beg pardon or to hear excuses. But as I approached the threshold, I heard a voice behind me. "Wait," Dad replied. "Before you go." He approached the table, picked up his wine glass, and elevated it slightly. "I think there's one more toast we need to make." I did not look around, but I could feel every eye on him. "To my son," he exclaimed with a loud voice. "The one person in this room who didn't pretend everything was fine while letting rot fester under the tablecloth. To the only one here who still knows what family should mean." He laid his drink down. No one applauded. Nobody echoed the toast. I walked back into the snow, the door closing softly behind me. And this time, I did not feel hollow. I sensed something else. A storm brewing. Because I wasn't finished. Not yet. I did not return to my flat that night. Instead, I rented a room at a tiny inn near the lake where I used to go with my mother when I was younger. It was the only place open on Christmas night, and the woman at the front desk didn't ask any questions. Instead, she handed me a key with a warm grin and said the heater worked perfectly. I thanked her and returned to my room, where I sank on the edge of the bed, the silence finally catching up with me. I looked at the letter again, running my fingertips over the words. Every time I read it, I discovered something new. Another aspect of her voice, rhythm, and care. She closed the letter with, "Don't let them silence you ever again. The world will attempt to make you little, but I raised you to know better. I adore you always. Mom." I sat there for a while, simply thinking. The next morning I went for a walk along the frozen lake. The sky was dull silver, and the air had the keen, crisp bite of midwinter. My phone buzzed with missed calls, texts, and voicemail. Samantha had finally ended her silence. Messages ranged from, "We need to talk," to, "You really embarrassed the whole family." I didn't respond. Not yet. I needed to do it my way. When I arrived back at the inn, I sat down at the small wooden desk near the window, opened my laptop, and began writing. The letter was the first document I scanned. Then I drafted an accompanying statement that was neither bitter nor inflated. Just facts. The truth. I shared it online, on my private blog, which Mom used to read. Then I emailed the link to everyone who gathered around the Christmas table. Then I waited. The fallout began around 4 hours later. My cousin Logan was the first to seek out. He wasn't someone I was ever close to, but he was always nice to me in that nebulous, "I'm staying out of it" way. His message was short. "Eli, I didn't know, I'm sorry. That letter broke me. I should have stood up for you. We all should have." It was the first time I had received an apology from anyone in years. The second message came from Aunt Brenda. Unlike Logan's, hers was malice masquerading as sympathy. "You are making a mistake by airing dirty laundry like way. Family matters should be private. Do you truly want to open a rift that cannot be repaired?" I read it and then deleted it because I did not cause the rift. It was the result of every slammed door, declined invitation, and whisper behind my back. I wasn't causing a division. I was acknowledging the one who had been present all along. Samantha called that evening. I nearly didn't pick up, but curiosity got the best of me. Her tone was careful, not hostile yet. "Eli, look, I saw what you posted. That letter. I didn't read the whole thing, but..." "But what?" I inquired. "I think we should talk. In person. Not online. This is a family matter." "You had years to talk," I explained. "You had opportunities to call me, invite me to birthdays, thank me for the gifts I sent. You didn't. You buried the one thing Mom left me. And now that people are finally seeing who you are, now you want to talk?" There was silence on the other end. "You really want to fix this?" I inquired. "Then tell the truth, publicly. Own it. Own what you and Brenda did. I can't just... you know how this looks, Eli? Everyone's judging us now." "Good," I replied firmly. Maybe now you'll understand how I felt every holiday when you all made me feel like a stranger." She did not call again after that. However, others exceeded my expectations. My mother's old friend Margot messaged me. She hadn't communicated with our family in years. She stated the letter drove her to tears, and that my mother had always been concerned about how Brenda treated me even before she became ill. Apparently, she requested Margot to stay close to me after her death. But Brenda had also intercepted it and informed Margot that I needed space. I told everyone I wanted some space. They had revised the story, and I would allow them. Because I did not know. Until now. A few days later, I returned to the house, but not for Christmas or to reconcile. I arrived with a purpose. Dad met me on the front steps. He appeared exhausted, yet clear-headed, as if he had just awoken from a lengthy slumber. "They're inside," he explained. "Samantha, Brenda, everyone else left." I nodded. "Let's do this." We walked in together. Brenda was pacing the living room with a drink in her hand, as if she were practicing a big speech. Samantha sat tight on the couch, her eyes crimson with stress or frustration. I did not give them a chance to start. "I'm taking legal action," I stated. "I talked to a lawyer. What you did was hiding my mother's letter, manipulating her communication, possibly intercepting personal mail. It may not be criminal, but it's unethical. And it is grounds for cutting you out of any say in family decisions going forward." Brenda blinked and then laughed once. "Family decisions? You're barely part of this family." "That's funny," you replied, "because I just reconnected with 10 relatives who think otherwise. Including Aunt Nadine. Do you remember her? She's flying out next month to see me for the first time in 10 years. Apparently she thought I cut her off. Wonder where she got that idea." Samantha looked away. Dad stepped forward. "Things are going to change. Starting now. Eli's letter from his mother should have been given to him immediately. The fact that you both kept it from him after everything means you've lost my trust." "Thomas, be reasonable," Brenda advised. He shakes his head. You manipulated us. You convinced me that my son didn't care, that he was distant by choice. I let you fill that void after we lost her and I regret it every day." He looked at me and said, "I'm rewriting the will. Effective immediately." Samantha's head snapped upward. "What?" "I don't trust you with anything related to this family's legacy anymore," he replied, his voice chilly. "Eli's the one who honored your mother's memory. He's the one who told the truth." Brenda sputtered. "You're letting one letter undo everything?" "No," I replied. "You did that." I gave her a copy of the letter. "Read it. Really read it. Then ask yourself how someone could ever justify hiding it." I did not remain for the rest. I stepped out of that house for the last time, my head held high, the wind blowing on my face, and the sun beginning to break out from behind the gray. Weeks have passed. Dad stuck to his word and rewrote the will. We began meeting every Sunday, just the two of us. We slowly began to restore the link that had been stressed for far too long. He even accompanied me to the lake one afternoon in February. We talked about Mom as she truly was, not the edited version Brenda had filtered over the years. Samantha and Brenda attempted damage control. A few ineffective attempts at reconciliation. Samantha's public post about forgiveness made no mention of my name. However, most people saw through it. And I didn't care. I finally understood something. Family is not about blood. It doesn't matter who turns up to dinner or shares your surname. It's about who stands with you when the truth is revealed. And thanks to that letter, my mother's parting gift, I discovered my voice again. They attempted to lock the door on me. I strolled through it anyway. This time, I made sure it banged shut behind me.